Hello, welcome. Right, this is a daily loop. We've got some matches overdue here as well. Transfer bids. Yeah, we're not really interested in selling this guy. He's super key for us, really. It's an interesting training option here, though. We'll get to that after. Next one is the Academy Trialists. Now, we do have to consider that, where are we in the month? 22nd, so we still got a bit of ways left, but this guy, we're still waiting for the tackling. I think with the ways left, I basically mean we don't want too many players that we're still waiting on attributes for at this point. We're not in that position. We're in that position last month. Well, we are a little bit, I guess. If this guy comes out bad tackling, maybe we don't want him. If this guy comes out low speed, maybe we don't want him. This guy's speed came up and it's only 23. So I think combined with just a lot of other stuff being pretty decent but not great, like the passing is okay but not great. The aerial ability is only 1. He's got good control. I think we can just move this guy out at this point. We got to wait a while now to find out the finishing. So there's not a lot this guy can do with 23 speed, to be honest. He could be in our roles in our team, I mean. So he could be one of the MCs, a box-to-box midfielder, or the DMC. So I think with the DMC, he would need really high tackling and higher passing, or maybe, yeah, he's just not going to be that. That's the reality with because he's an AMR, so the odds of him getting the high stuff at DMC is really low. And the other one is box-to-box midfielder, which he could be, but I don't know. Again, the one aerial ability is really not ideal for someone in the middle of the park when just up and back like that. It's okay, but it's just not ideal. If they got one aerial ability, ideally you want them in a wide area of the pitch, not in a central area. So I think we'll just pass on that guy. This guy, Vision's 19. Yeah, it's not great. We're waiting on the speed for him. We still are. This guy, the tackling. So unfortunately, he could have been a world-class DC. Instead, he's not at all. And unfortunately the passing is also low, so we can't make him a DMC or anything else in the team. It really is DC or nothing. Maybe he's good enough, but he's gone from being potentially world class to being average. With that attribute reveal, I'd say something like that. And do we need... He's still good at some things, but the thing is, it's very hard to run a DC that's not good at tackling. You can do all sorts of things to minimize it needing to be really high for all of your defenders, but it's still always better. At the end of the day, you're minimizing the negative effects of it, but they're still, at the end of the day, if they're playing central defender, whatever you do, the tackling is going to matter. That's the thing. You can adjust how much it matters, but it is just going to matter quite a bit no matter what. So it's not ideal, but I think we'll get rid of this guy. I think we'll look to get rid of first, then this guy. This guy's already had the flow, so we're waiting for the tackling on that. So we've got 2 to move out. At the end of the day, if we did end up graduating this guy, it would kind of be okay with it, I suppose. Again, I think the other problem with this guy is that he's kind of just okay, but we also graduated 2 DCs last month. So and with this guy will still be in the youth team next month at 21, and we got 2 other DCs. So we ideally would be moving towards having the same tactic as our senior team, but I think our timeline for that at the moment is at some point during next season, probably, or the beginning of the season after. So, and that means that we probably are only running 2 DCs for most of next season, or I would say perhaps all of it. So in other words, I'm saying we only would start 2 and we'd need 1 off the bench that we could get games. We don't need any more DCs for the youth team for next season, or at least probably, or at least for the first part of it. The exception to that might be if we happen to get a really good wide midfielder in the meantime. Anyway, all I'm really saying is having an average DC for the youth team is very low priority, basically. So with this, so yeah, we got 2 to move out. Let's see what we can find. It's only 2 speed, so I think we'll pass because that's just really, really slow. Otherwise, there was a lot to work with here. I think just too many attributes that are super low. We don't really need a keeper. I think just too much low stuff. Too much low stuff. Too much low stuff. Too much low stuff. I think just too much low stuff. He's got some bits here that are alright, like the passing, the positioning, but the tackling is sort of okay. It's passable for the DMC, I suppose, but there's just too much of the other stuff's really low. Too much low stuff. Oh, this guy's interesting. So he's got really low crossing, which doesn't matter too much. The control's low, which isn't ideal, but he has got very good finishing and composure. And good enough passing. So, what kind of striker could he be? One that doesn't take long shots. So, what does that mean? It means poacher with a team around him that can build up chances for him, which we can because we've got the creative forward in behind. So it could be poacher, could be target man, could be some kind of general striker role. Now, okay, so what is that? Well, let's go through these. So the poacher, I think, is not good because of the 7 control. Probably for this guy to be viable, he needs a lot bigger right. I'd say he basically needs to be fast. If he's not fast, it's going to be hard because he's got the lower long shots. This is the issue. So if he's slow, in our tactic at least, in most tactics to be fair, the slower a striker is, the more important the long shots becomes effectively, because the more likely they are to just end up with the ball and get caught up basically, and yeah, you can do a lot to try to help with that, like make sure they have a lot of support and things like that, and that will help all of these things. It's like if you want to run a poacher, for example, that has low long shots, you can, but you need to make sure that your team is capable of that poacher doesn't have any responsibilities in regards to the build-up play. So you need to have a lot of players around them to do the build-up play and to get the ball to them. You need to build the tactic correctly, and it's a lot more easier / forgiving to have strikers that have high long shots if they have low speed. It's just easier to, it's not as difficult to get working. Okay. But I would say just generally, regardless of whatever you do, the general rule here is just slower the striker, more important long shots is. And I guess we would want him to be fast because of the low long shots, and then also in the line of that as well, you want the dribbling to be high. And then ideally you would have the aerial ability high, but at that point, depending on how fast, if he's lightning fast with great dribbling, maybe it's not as key. So I think we can go with that, because if the dribbling's low, which is the next reveal, we know that probably it kind of is just not going to be good enough, so we can move him out at that point. Otherwise, we could hang around for the speed potentially. It's not ideal because it's really right near the end here, the two that you care about. So you could definitely find out on the last couple of days that he's no good. And in fact, that's probably what you are going to find out. So if you have a player like this, you want a player like this. You don't want players like this. Last month, I think we had 3 players like this at the end, and we ended up really graduating a couple players that just weren't that good at all. And ideally, we shouldn't really be putting ourselves in that position. Like, we've had a whole month this time around anyway. Last time we didn't because we joined mid-month, but this time around we've had a whole month. So we should really be able to just end up with a whole bunch, all the players we're happy with, and maybe not one because you're speculating on. And that's the thing. Even if this player does get high speed near the end, he's still just pretty good, I would say. So you're gambling on something that the upside is pretty good. It's not world class. So it's always different if you're, for example, we're gambling on this DC at the end, and the last reveal was the tackling, let's say, and if it happened to come out high, he could potentially be, the best central defender in the entire game in his prime. Like, maybe he could be that. Like, it's always fine to gamble on a player like that, but a player like this, not so much. But on the same note, we know we want to move out some of these other guys, like this guy. So for now, we'll just move him in. But maybe we'll find somebody else. Right, so this guy, so he generally does have pretty decently high attributes. So that speed for our central midfielder, like, he's probably fine. Like, he's got good enough speed for sure, and then combined with that work rate, that's fine for our box-to-box midfielder role. That's good. It's good overall. And it's kind of to some degree ideal. It's more ideal to have them slower, I would say, with a higher work rate than faster with lower work rate. Just generally, when they have a higher top end speed and they're running at it, they get tired more quickly. And then so I think this, and then obviously all of this matters with the natural fitness and the endurance and stuff. So putting all of this together, I just say that this is a good enough combination of endurance and natural fitness and speed and work rate, like these numbers, for him to generally be able to last the match out. He's also got really high aerial ability, which is great. The vision is great. Like, the control ideally would be better or whatever. The next one being revealed is crossing, so that doesn't really matter. And then it's passing. So if that's low, you could just get rid of him straight away. Now, he doesn't have particularly great goal scoring, like attacking, like the dribbling, finishing, long shots, and whatever the composure is. Would be passable, somewhere between barely passable and quite and decently okay, depending on what the composure is. But the reality is not good enough for him to be an out-and-out attacking player, so he's going to need decent tackling as well. So he needs really good passing and good tackling, decent at least. So that's going to be true no matter what. So in order to know if you want him, you're waiting for the D. The very last one is determination, which isn't ideal either, because that's going to matter a lot for his development. But so I think this guy would rather have in instead of the DC, quite frankly. So let's just put him in. Alright, we'll just pass on him just because he's slow and just not as good as the other strikers that we got there, basically. This guy, yeah, just AMR, not a position we use, just generally not good enough. This guy, I think, he's pretty decent if you're looking for an AML, but we're not. For our wide midfielders, so straight away, if we want to use him in anything, we got to think, is this guy good enough to want to use one of, like, add a position to, and he's just not that good. This guy, some high stuff, but again, he's just not good enough to want to add a position to. Right, this guy's pretty interesting because let's just quickly check the last one, make sure we can. Yeah, so he's no good. So we got one more here. So he actually does have good passing and vision, and also really good long shots and good enough tackling. So the core of what he needs is there. So what else does he need? Need. He's got low work rate, So he needs to be fast enough. So, which is quite fast with 10 work rate. So, and that's quite a late reveal. I'm just going to go back and reassess these guys. So this guy has a couple of issues, whatever the passing and tackling is. So one, we got to add a position to him, which isn't ideal. And two, he's got horrible aerial ability, horrible control, and horrible flair. So where does that leave him, like, realistically? And his vision isn't great, so he's not going to be the deep line playmaker, I don't think, no matter what, even if the tackling and passing both come out at 60. He probably isn't because of that vision, because of that aerial ability. He might, but they're not going to both come out at 60 anyway, so he could be the box-to-box midfielder, but again, like, with that speed and whatever, like, that natural fitness and endurance is just horrible. He's only ever going to be able to come off the bench at the end, and again, that aerial ability isn't ideal for a central role. And then you're saying he could be a striker, maybe, I suppose, but his finishing probably isn't quite good enough, although, and again with that aerial ability, so then you're saying, okay, so he could be the wide midfielder role. Okay, he could be wide midfielder role. Okay, he could be things. He could be the wide midfielder role, and maybe he could be the creative forward, but probably not, just because of the low control. But maybe. So maybe he could be things. I want to put this MC. Just feels like he could be okay to me. I don't know. It's hard. You're gambling on this real late speed. Yeah, this guy feels better in nature. You find the speed out now, so definitely don't want to move him out for him. This guy, yeah, probably don't want to move him out for him either. Can move him out for him, this guy, this striker, just because you could eliminate him with a really low dribbling now, but even if you keep him, you're still waiting until to find the speed out, which is the second last attribute, to know if he's viable or not. Whereas this guy, you're way more forgiving. Like, that striker is just useless if he ends up with something like 30 speed. Whereas if this guy ends up with something like 30 speed, at least he's useful. So yeah, I think we'll put this other MC in instead. It's not ideal. We've moved now towards quite a lot of players that we're finding out late on if they're any good. So that's not ideal at all, to be fair. But that's the way it goes. So we just have to keep that in mind now. We were very comfortable just waiting on these players we had for quite a long time, and then today, like, the bombshell hit and a few of them had to move out. And tomorrow it could happen again. So we do need to bear in mind now about trying to get some players. Like, this is why I brought this guy in, because it's like, yes, the speed could be 1 or something, but even if it, it's just a lot more forgiving. It doesn't need to be high, it just needs to not be really low. Now, ideally for him to be really good, because of that low work rate and whatever, it does ideally need to be at least, I'd say, mid-40s for him to be good. But even if it comes out at like 29 or something, he's still not completely useless. Whereas that striker, if his speed come out at 29 or something, he would just be pretty much useless compared to the other youth strikers we got. He just wouldn't play at all. So, right. So that's that. Moving on. Scouted players. Got some keepers, right. So he'd be a pretty good deep line playmaker for us, but he's really old. So if we were in a high division and we needed somebody, like, we could maybe get him. He's just super well rounded basically, and has high enough stuff in the key, like high enough passing and vision and tackling, but also just some really great other stuff, good aerial ability, and just really well rounded. So how many training boosts is this guy? So he's still got one left, and it's going to give him +5 speed, +3 determination, +2 aerial ability. That's the one you'd take, I think. His determination's low. I mean, this guy's really good. Or was he this guy? So he's already had a marking and a tackling. Yeah. But he's good, he is good. His determination's only 17, but we don't need a DC. And he is 1 million, but if we did and you had money, it could be the type of one that's worth picking up. Right. This guy... Just passing through a lot of these because we don't, just too old for our timeline. And these guys don't play a position in our formation. Again, we just don't use this position. Guy's pretty good for us. He's almost perfect, to be honest, but he's just too old. Happens a lot though, obviously, because players when they're that age, they're just in their prime, so it's to be expected. But just so to be clear, it's just because he just has everything he needs for our box-to-box midfielder. He's just got, well, his speed and work rate is good. Maybe his endurance and natural fitness isn't quite high enough. Maybe he would need to get subbed off most games, which isn't. So he's not perfect. He's just really good. And then just the passing, the vision, the tackling, the long shots, the finishing, the dribbling, the composure, the control, just all this sort of stuff that they get to do a lot because they're a box-to-box midfielder is all high. And just the speed and work rate is high enough for him to get up and back to be able to do all of that stuff often. Unlike a player like this, for example, isn't as good as the other one. He's way faster, but and he's got a lot higher physicals here. But he just all the stuff for the finishing, the long shots, the tackling, so he can get up and back and get involved to do all of these things, but when it actually comes to executing these things that he's running around getting all these chances to do, he's just missing the tackles and missing the shots and things. He does have good passing and vision though, so this guy will be much better suited to, I don't know what, to be honest, to just a more central midfield role, I would say, than up and back, but or a creative one. Like one of the more specialist creative roles. I don't know if he's quite that good to be good enough for that. Just moving on. We are looking for an MR and ML, so this guy we're just going to pass because his passing isn't high enough for what we'd want for those roles. Okay, and we'll just quickly go to the auctions. We did say we are going to try and remember to check yesterday's results. So yeah, I think that guy we're talking about was there for 400 and something. So we did guess correctly. Was outbid. And let's just quickly check the. So 26 million. That's a huge price. He does have 65 overall at 24 years old. That's really good as well. Okay. Let's just check. I guess we'll sort according to price. Oof. So yeah, again, I think this player will end up. This one will be outbid for. I'm pretty sure. Just because you have this really abnormally high speed plus other sort of decent attributes for a position, so I'm pretty sure that we'll check again tomorrow. But I'm pretty sure someone's going to outbid for him. Now we don't really have much affordability for these other guys. So we're only quickly checking these lower ones just in case we have some very special player for us to bid for. And the other thing we just wanted to quickly check was some DMC if he was still here. Was it this guy? No, I can't remember. Let's go by position. Yeah, it was this guy. So we'd need just try and bid. I don't think we can. Yeah, okay. I don't think we're going to get him still, just because we'd have to sell somebody. And how is our projection anyway? 5, 6. Yeah, so I think we'll just. It's just not a clear. He's sort of probably a bit better than this guy, but I think we would ideally just. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just partly because we're going to have to sell players and shortchange ourselves on the sales a bit, and I'm not, which we would do if we were perfectly happy with him, but we're just not perfectly happy with him, so we'll pass on that. And the last thing is just the for now, we'll keep an eye on the situation with him, because if we get a bid, for someone else, like if we get a sale that makes sense, then we would have. We might get him then. Oh man, I'm trying to find the right thing here. We're trying to find the training. So, is this the last day that we pick them? I think it is, unless we buy somebody. Then maybe we get to pick it still. So, it's an interesting option, to be honest. So they both have +2 passing. Now he doesn't. He typically does just last the match out. Just. He does end up with a bit below the see, that's not a good example because he got injured. Ugh. Right, let's find some other examples. Say, like I said, 80% he finished on. Just like I was, and I said just, I bent it, and 80% again. I think that's a different match. I'm pretty sure I didn't click the same one. And 80% again. Alright. So he literally finished on 80% 3 matches in a row. I'll just check another one just to see if he's finishing below. He got subbed off though, and it was 81%, so that doesn't... He would have finished below though if he didn't get subbed off, for sure. 82. Right, so he's basically has enough, just. So, by giving him +2, that should mean that he has enough. A little bit more than just, like he should, and then taking 1 away is like he has a little bit less than enough, sort of thing. So oddly, this particular thing is really important because he's constantly basically finishing the match at like 80% condition or a bit below, getting subbed off, whatever. Like knowing that he can last the match out matters here. Now, if this didn't matter, absolutely, if it wasn't right in the balance like this, then option B would just be the option. He is always playing that attacking wide role. The movement helps a bit there, and then ideally he would keep that aerial ability. So it's absolutely B. If it wasn't in this exact situation where he's finishing on exactly 80% every match, or a bit below, so we're in that range. I'm going to go with A because it is right in that exact balance where this number the particular exactness of this number matters basically, because we are using our 3 subs every match to sub tired players off, so we don't like having a player that we know can just generally finish the match, and more players like that is just really good. Right, this guy, so it's another interesting choice. We get the extra movement doesn't really matter. The couple marking does matter. Now I guess the extra agility that matters, or you get the 3 natural fitness, which, well, matters a bit. I'd say generally he's not getting tired when he plays because he's just not that fast and he's got high endurance anyway, so it's just more about him getting more development points and stuff in the latter parts of his career. But I don't suppose we'll be extending this guy's contract. He's not good enough to bother for that, so I think we'll just go with this one, just because the natural fitness will be more of a thing that helps him later on in his career when he won't be with us anymore anyway. We might as well get the extra marking and the agility that helps us now. Right, this guy, I think we'll take this option. The tackling is probably the most important attribute here, but the speed matters quite a bit, the strength. The natural fitness, again, not too bothered about because he won't be around long term anyway, and he generally does have enough to get through the matches, so might as well just get the speed. This, basically the 3 speed and the 1 strength is worth more than 1 tackling point. Right, this guy, we want the tackling. He does get this side, gets a 4 passing, which is good. Flair, not too bothered. The work rate and the agility, I think in the end it's just this side because of the tackling, but it's a shame that we don't get that passing, to be honest. But it's just too important. Tackling's just too important for defenders, pretty much. Right, in that same vein, it's a bit more of an interesting one because, well, this is just a way more complicated decision, to be honest. So let's just start factoring out what doesn't matter too much to make this decision easier. I'd say basically the flare doesn't matter, and it's on both anyway, but it doesn't matter, so it's a non-factor here. It's -1 in both anyway, so let's just ignore the flare. I'd say that the dribbling doesn't really matter. Matters a little bit. It doesn't really matter. I don't think the determination matters too much, to be honest, because he's already 28, so it's just going to help his... It's much more of a thing for the progression for younger players with their training points and stuff. It doesn't really matter. The speed matters. The speed really matters. The tackling really matters, and the aerial ability matters quite a lot as well. And the composure matters a bit less because he plays the stopper role, so he's typically stepping up and not... Like, it's not as expensive. Like, the composure helps a lot more with like last ditch tackles, like really dangerous. It helps a lot to basically, well, not mostly. You can view the lens for central defenders more than anything is to not give away penalties. Really, it's more for these really last ditch dangerous tackles. They're less likely to foul. So where it becomes particularly expensive for central defenders fouling in those type of situations is really dangerous. It is typically like just inside the penalty box stuff. So that's how you can think of it. Just higher composure, give away less penalties. So the tackling obviously matters a lot as well. It works with that. Like, it obviously still matters. It's just that's how you can sort of think of it. So it matters a bit, but less so for this central defender because he's typically stepping up with the stopper role when he's not tackling inside the box typically. So I would say, to some degree, we can dismiss the dribbling, we can dismiss the flair, we can dismiss the determination, and we can sort of just treat the composure as a very secondary thing. And then the tackling and the speed is very important, and the aerial ability is quite important. So I'd say, looking at it through that lens, we're basically saying this side gets the extra 2 tackling, but this side gets 3 speed, or loses 3 less speed, and this side also gets a 2-point aerial ability swing. So I'd say, actually, even though on first sight it seemed like this was the correct option, I think this one is, because most of these negatives here, determination, flair, dribbling, they don't really matter that much. Right, moving on. So +6 determination matters for a player at this age who we're trying to get matches. It would matter more if he was playing more, to be honest. He was starting every match before. +6 flair, that matters. The marking doesn't really matter. The extra movement matters. The extra control matters. The extra crossing doesn't really matter. Right, it's definitely this side, because he gets a contract extension as well. So, right, we got there in the end. It was a long one. It was the longest one in ages. Quite a few decisions to make there, but we got there in the end. So, we're going to get on to our matches now. Thanks for watching. Cheers.